How to make a $1 formicarium, the tubs and tubes method. A good formicarium is one of the most important requirements for the survival of an ant colony. It is where your ants sleep and grow. However, some people do not have the luxury of spending money on formicaria and may worry about which formicarium would be best for the ant colony. In this video, I will show the cheapest formicarium for small to mid-sized ant colonies. By the way, only a small percentage of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Enjoy the video! This formicarium is known as the tubs and tubes formicarium. The tubs and tubes setup was popularized and named by the famous ant YouTuber Ants Australia. It is an effective formicarium in the way that it acts as both a formicarium and an outwork for the ants. The main difference is that my version will be a lot cheaper and simpler for young innkeepers to make. Before I get on with making the setup, I think I will need to clarify why I'm using test tubes. In my previous video, I said that test tubes were ineffective in housing most common ant species. So, does this mean I changed my mind? Absolutely not. However, I do believe that test tubes are fantastic for housing mid-sized colonies. This is because they can self-regulate and move when mold is present, removing most of the problems they would have had as a founding colony. To build this formicarium, you will need two things: a container and test tubes. This container should be large enough to put in your test tubes. You should be able to find containers in any convenience shop. I got mine for a package of 5 containers for $1.50. This brings our total cost to 30 cents. Next, you will need some test tubes. Any size test tubes will do as long as it's large enough for your ants to fit in them. I got my test tubes for 20 cents a tube online. I'll be using 3 test tubes for this formicarium, but you can add more or less if you like, depending on the size of your colony. 3 test tubes can actually house quite a lot of ants. A test tube left alone in an outwall can house over 100 ants. This would bring a total cost to 90 cents. I also used some cotton for the water test tubes, and used some baby powder and rubbing alcohol for the barrier. I only used this in small amounts, so it's safe to assume that it costs under 10 cents, making our total cost less than $1. Now, let's get to actually building the formicarium. First, cut an entry hole at the side of the container for the ants to enter and exit. This can be done by poking the container with a sharp object and twisting it. Next, poke a few holes in the lid of the container to allow ventilation. Do take note that you might want to poke more holes if you intend to connect vinyl tubing at the entrance hole. This is to increase airflow and prevent suffocation. As an optional step, apply an ant barrier to reduce the risk of ant escaping. I'm using a baby powder and alcohol barrier. Allow the formicarium to dry with the lid off to prevent deaths from alcohol fumes. Although ant barriers are not compulsory, I strongly recommend them. They make it easier for you to feed your ants and prevents them from escaping. With this alone, you already have a fully functional outwall or feeding area for your ants. Now for the nesting section. Make a water test tube setup. This can be done by filling a test tube with 40 to 50% water and inserting half a cotton ball into the water. Don't worry if you get air bubbles in the water, they are harmless. Place the test tubes inside and you're completely done with the $1 formicarium. I think it's important to briefly mention that this formicarium may be suitable for most ant species, but will not work for ant species that are very dry loving and species that require substrate. For species that require substrate, you need to modify the setup by adding substrate. Of course, you can decorate the formicarium in any way you like as well. With that being said, that's the end of the video and I'll see you next time. Bye!